Most people are simply not ready for the economic chaos that's coming in 2023. Michael Schneider reports. Have you noticed that a lot of big companies have been conducting mass layoffs recently? At this point, it's become exceedingly clear that a major economic slowdown has begun, and payrolls are being feverishly slashed at a rate that we have not seen in a long time. In fact, the number of job cuts in November 2022 was 417% higher than it was in November 2021. Unfortunately, what we witnessed is so far just the beginning. We're being warned that a couple million more Americans could lose their jobs in 2023, and the vast majority of the population is simply not prepared for such a scenario. In fact, a new survey that was just released found that 63% of all Americans are currently living paycheck to paycheck. As of November, 63% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, according to a monthly Lending Club report, up from 60% the previous month and nearly 64% historic high hit in March. Even high-income earners are under pressure, Lending Club found. Of those earning more than six figures, 47% reported lived paycheck to paycheck, a jump from previous month's 43%. When you're just barely scraping by from month to month, a job loss can be absolutely debilitating. Sadly, this year, many large corporations aren't even waiting until after the holidays to give the axe to thousands of highly dedicated employees. There is arguably no good time for companies to lay off employees, of course, but as farewell to my job posts continue to populate LinkedIn, many are wondering, why did they have to do this week before Thanksgiving or right before Christmas? Despite the job market's overall strength, big names in tech, including Meta Platforms, Salesforce Inc., and Amazon.com, have all laid off workers or announced plans to do so in recent months. Thousands of job cuts have also hit other industries in Ford Motor Company, Walmart, PepsiCo, all reducing their headcounts, leaving many employees to wonder, could I be next? Are things really so bad that these giant firms could not have waited a few weeks? Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, you're fired. When I was growing up, big companies at least pretended to be compassionate. But now corporate giants seem to feel free to let workers go the instant that their usefulness is over. Layoffs around the holidays are a relatively recent phenomenon. In the 1970s and 80s, companies were more cognizant of the optics of putting people out of work during the most wonderful time of the year, says Andy Challenger, Senior Vice President with Challenger, Gray & Christmas, a career services and executive coaching firm. That sentiment has passed, he says. Today we tend to see companies making the cuts when they feel like they need to. Apparently, the Washington Post will also be laying off quite a few workers in the days ahead. When staff members learned that job cuts would soon be coming, they were not happy. Needless to say, the Washington Post is far from alone. In fact, several other very large media companies have also recently announced cutbacks. Of course, the news of the layoffs comes amid a horrible backdrop for the media industry at large. In recent weeks, CNN has laid off hundreds of staffers, Gannett has cut 200 staffers, NPR has said it needs to find $10 million in savings, and other organizations have implemented moves to slash costs. Even though so many big names have been slashing workers, the government has continued to insist that everything is just fine. And each month they've told us that the U.S. economy has continued to gain jobs. But now the truth of what has really been going on is starting to become quite obvious. In fact, even at the Philly Fed, it's now publicly admitting that the number of jobs in this country has been overstated by the government by at least 1 million jobs. Remember what we said in July when we first looked at the March to June divergence between household and established survey? We said then that since March, the establishment survey shows a gain of 1.124 million jobs, while the household survey shows an employment loss of 347,000. Said otherwise, we found that payrolls calculated by the establishment survey were overestimated by 1.5 million. Shockingly, the Philly Fed seems to agree and reported that instead of the roughly 1.1 million jobs reported by the BLS, only 10,500 new jobs were added. As the tsunami of layoffs continues to accelerate, it's probably just a matter of time before the U.S. economy starts losing large numbers of jobs every month. That's exactly what several of the largest financial institutions on Wall Street are now projecting, and we continue to get more evidence that economic conditions are really starting to slow down. On Thursday, we learned that the U.S. retail sales actually declined during the month of November. U.S. retail spending and manufacturing weakened in November, signs of a slowing economy as the Federal Reserve continues its battle against high inflation. November retail sales fell 0.6% from the prior month, of the biggest decline this year. The Commerce Department said on Thursday, budget-conscious shoppers pulled back sharply on holiday-related purchases, home projects and autos. Manufacturing output declined 0.6%, the first drop since June, the Fed said in a separate statement. But apparently, economic conditions are not yet bad enough for the officials at the Federal Reserve, because they just decided to raise interest rates even higher. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday raised its benchmark interest rate to the highest level in 15 years, indicating the fight against inflation is not over, despite some promising signs lately. Keeping with expectations, the rate-setting Federal Open Market Committee voted to boost the overnight borrowing rate 0.5 percentage point, taking it to a target range between 4.25% and 4.5%. The increase broke a string of 4 straight 3/4 point hikes, the most aggressive policy move since the early 1980s. What the Federal Reserve is doing is absolutely suicidal. They have just ensured that unemployment will go even higher, that our new housing crash will get even worse, and that a very painful economic downturn is coming in 2023. In the aftermath of the Fed's decision, the Dow was down 764 points on Thursday. Investors dumped stock on Thursday as more headwinds emerged for the U.S. economy as the Federal Reserve stays the course in raising interest rates. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 764 points, or 2.2%, as the broader markets faced the worst session since November. The mood on Wall Street is quite glum right now. The outlook for 2023 is not good, and the outlook for the years beyond 2023 is even worse. Our leaders have been making incredibly bad decisions for decades, and now we're starting to pay the price. There's going to be so much pain during the year ahead, and the vast majority of the population is not prepared for what is coming at all. It's finally here. Michael's new book entitled End Times, now available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. About the author, he says, "My name is Michael Snyder. My brand new book entitled End Times is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books that are available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America and Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, Commissions Earned. When you purchase any of these books, you help to support the work that I'm doing, and one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short, and I need to help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I've published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News, and the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I ask that you include this about the author section with each article. The material contained in the article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.